minutes, I'm leaving.
We can't.
How about more than 15 or 20
Yeah,
minutes? Look at the
that's
agenda,
fine.
it should be
That's
15 or 20 minutes.
5:45 or 45 minutes from now.
Right.
All right, let's call to order the August 14, 2017 Green Bay Traffic Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting. Under general business number 1, do we have I guess open up
Move to
approval of the
approve.
agenda? Motion been made.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. 2, approval of the minutes from July 17, 2017 Traffic Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting.
Second.
Made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Initial
Mr. Chairman, let me ask you a procedural question. We had an email from Commissioner, how do you say that, Riordan or
Was it Reardon?
Reardon? I always get that goofed up. Reardon.
Okay.
Is there such a thing on these commissions as an excused absent if somebody informs us that they are not going to be able to be here?
Yeah,
I
I
think
mark
so.
it down
Yeah.
as excused. Yeah.
That's what my other things.
As long as you notify ahead of time, and,
Yeah.
you know,
We
you're just
usually
not a
do that.
no-show or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Correct, Dave?
Yeah.
It's always been
Well,
right.
what I do is I mark it down as excused or not excused, but actually the minutes usually just have a roll call on it.
Okay.
Do we want, I mean, other minutes do have excused, even city council minutes will show if
Right.
someone is excused.
I think in the past it showed up as excused, like if I had notified you ahead of time, it showed up in the minutes as,
Right, with the
With the-
parentheses.
Right.
I would like it to be that way.
Should be that way.
Do we want to, I mean, we can probably under general business discuss that too. Well, I guess this is kind of general business, but is that, I guess what I'm hearing, that we want to see that as reported as part of the minutes from here on out?
I think if a person calls ahead of time, and so we know that they're,
Right.
we're having a quorum, and they have the courtesy of informing the chairman that we have, you know, a conflict, I think they should be so noted.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think that really takes action requirement. I mean, I'll just make sure the excused and not excused are noted.
Thank you.
Minutes from
Great.
here on out.
I think as long as you, before the meeting, notify that they're not coming, that's
Right.
excused. But if you're not at the meeting and don't show up and don't notify, that's
Yeah,
not excused.
that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
right, because as it sits right now, Bridget, she did tell me so it would be excused as well as Carl.
Yeah.
So we have 2 excused.
Let me ask you a further question.
I thought you wanted to be out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see.
I thought Carl was retiring. What is
Yes.
his situation?
End of the
Yeah,
year.
At the end of the year.
At
he
the
is
end of the year.
retired, And Lieutenant Brad Strouth is his replacement, so.
Okay, I was
The
under
January
the
meeting
impression it
is-
was earlier than that. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sorry for
before we
delaying
go?
the meeting,
We're here
Mr.
an extra
Chairman.
2 minutes now. Good, we get your questions answered, Dean. So. 3, consideration with possible action on request by DPW Parking Division to establish a no stopping or standing zone in the alley bounded by City Deck, Cherry Street, Washington Street, and Pine Street.
If you look at the displays, the push pin is about where that alley is located. So on the north, you have Pine Street. On the south, you have Cherry Street. And this is City Deck, of course, and there is an alleyway, one-way southbound alleyway located between these buildings. We've received multiple complaints from business owners in that block that there is a vehicle that is parking there on a regular basis, literally obstructing the whole path of the alleyway. So they had requested our parking division to see if there could be anything done to get rid of this activity. And the parking division and then approached me and asked me what sort of change in parking ordinance would be able to get this to be, I guess, a little bit more strict. And I said, really, we could go to a no stopping or standing. That is really the most strict form of parking. We do have loading zones in the 100 block and 300 block of North Washington. That was my first concern, is that, well, if we go to a no stopping or standing, what happens if there really there's a real delivery that needs to happen and that activity needs to occur. And the loading zones that are available at 100 and 300 block should be sufficient. And that's why they were created for those businesses actually in the 100, 200, and 300 block of North Washington. So that being said, I recommend moving forward with this, and we'll be working then, of course, with the parking division to make sure that that's enforced.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 4, consideration with possible action request by DPW Parking Division to establish a metered zone on the north side of Cherry Street, one stall, just east of the alley behind Washington Street and City Deck.
Yeah, again, this is real close to this area too. I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit. There's that one stall that's right over here. And, you know, that was established, I think, right around the time when City Deck was built. Obviously, the popularity of the City Deck has really made that stall, it's almost always occupied. And everything around there, when it comes to parking, available on-street parking is metered. That is our downtown standard. For the core is a metered zone, so it's just I think it's outlived its use as a one hour zone. Kind of a side note, the rest of the street is no stopping or standing. It is a narrower street, and I know that when we signed it at that time, it was somewhat confusing, and I had worked with Alderman Scannell to try to clarify the signs and everything, and it's always been kind of a very odd location to get it right, and I think there was some sort of confusion anyway with the sign. So I think by going to the meter, we're obviously, well, it's given we're going to resolve that issue. The sign goes away, the meters go in, or 1 meter really. So with those two issues that exist with the current parking zone, I make a recommendation to remove the 1 hour. It's actually technically no stopping or standing except 1 hour Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. zone. North side of Cherry from a point 125 feet west of Washington to a point 100 feet west of Washington. So it would be removing that and then establishing a metered zone in its place.
Could I have a clarification? And that's just for one car?
Yeah, it's just
One-
it'd just be one.
That's
meter
all that
going
would
in there.
fit?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I moved. to do
Motion
that.
made, seconded,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration with possible action on request by DPW Parking Division to establish a metered zone on the south side of Pine Street, 5 stalls from Adams Street to the alley behind Adams Street and Jefferson Street.
So not far from the location we just were at. This is actually what we were talking about Northland Hotel before. This is actually right across from Northland Hotel on Pine Street. There is a 15-minute loading zone. There's basically this whole block here. This is the Y. So right now there is a no parking here at corner zone here and no parking corner zone here, and that whole length is a 15-minute loading zone. Really significantly underutilized. Again, our parking division came to us with this and said, you know, it's really underutilized, and if we put meters in there, I think it'd be better served. And just thinking too of the future with the Northland coming in, it probably is going to be, you know, I'm sure with restaurants and everything like that, that some on-street parking should be made available. So, and I'm sure as you've seen Northland, those you know, that new segment in Northland or Northland Avenue from Adams to Washington has been very popular. So I think this is going to also start filling up, and again, you know, it's a revenue source and as well for parking division. So with that being said, I make that recommendation to support parking division's recommendation to add 5 meters in that area. So in essence, what we're doing is we're shortening it up. We'll still have a loading zone next to the Y over here, but then from that alleyway to Adams Street, minus of course the no parking here to corner zone, that's where the meters go. So basically directly across from the Northland.
Is that like by the art park?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
where it is? Okay.
Yeah, and again, you know, you make a good point with that too, because there's more and more businesses coming into that area too, that I think, you know, the parking demands are becoming stronger as well.
I'll make a motion to put the meters in.
Motion been made, and do we hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 6, consideration with possible action to establish a no parking zone at 818 South 5th Street.
Okay, I'm kind of surprised not to see Alderman Vanderleest here. I know that I met with he and the requester on this actually on site. Let me just navigate on this map, show you the location.
It's pretty cool.
I guess you could say kind of behind the Green Bay Plaza Mall. So, you know, here's Main Mason right here, Green Bay Plaza Mall. So right behind it on Fisk Street is this business right here. This is an apartment, or it's actually a business complex. I think that it's somewhat empty, and I always see signs in front of it. But probably of more significance is this business here. This is actually a funeral home. And actually, I think even looking at this particular image, you can see it looks like there must have been an event or a funeral that's taken place, and there's people that'll park on the street for them. What the complainant was saying is that these events seem to be more and more, and the issue that he's having is not only these vehicles will spill onto the street in front of his business, making it difficult to enter and exit his driveway, but this area right here where you can see I'm pointing on the screen is actually a pretty narrow spot. I should say narrow, just not that long, and there'll sometimes be people that park there, and it actually encroaches into that driveway, or both of the driveways. I went out there and looked at it, and it's too small to have any vehicle parked there, but apparently that's becoming a problem. And even more of an issue is they'll get people to actually be parking in his lot illegally. So with that being said, he wants to, he's gonna work with his issue over here on his own to get that resolved. He's been working with the funeral home directly, but this on-street issue he wants resolved. So this whole area in here is a 2-hour zone, 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. So in essence, what he's asking for is to make a break in that 2-hour zone and establish no parking between signs over in this area.
Isn't that problem mostly on the weekend? That's the one funeral home, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I could drive by there on Saturdays and Sundays. It's
Right.
quite often, but during the weekdays. So you're saying that right now it's 7 to 7, Monday through Friday?
Right, that's the 2-hour zone exists. So yeah, the weekends it would be unlimited or unrestricted.
Except for that spot you're looking at.
Right, I mean, as it exists today, the 2-hour zone is only applicable during the weekdays. Weekends, like you were noting,
Because when I
becomes unrestricted.
drive, the only point I would make is when there's an event there, the street is kind of narrow.
Oh, it's terrible.
I don't know if that's worth a different point to look at there, but there is an issue when they might have 30 or 40 cars in the street there.
Oh, yeah, and it's just like going down one lane,
Yeah.
and there's people running in and out between the cars. I mean, I've been down there a couple times when there's been visitations there, and it's pretty bad.
So you're thinking of longer no parking?
Well, I think one side of the street maybe no, as much as I hate to say it for that
Right.
business and funeral home there, but I don't know, it seems to be a Friday, or I'm sorry, a weekend thing, because that must be when they have their services.
I think so.
Not during the week, I haven't noticed during the week, I don't know, but I think it's the weekend, it is kind of a pretty tight quarters there.
Right.
You might want to look at that.
I'm presuming based off of the existing 2-hour zone and on the weekends it not being regulated, that the street probably is wide enough. I can't guarantee that. I would have to look it up just to make sure that we have proper width to accommodate the parking and travel lanes on both sides.
Well, you can meet somebody there, but it's pretty
Right.
tight quarters when you're passing. I mean, there's enough space, I think your point, is it wide enough, is probably correct. It's
Right.
just,
Well, the one comment or question I was gonna make about the no parking on the west side, you see that car that's in the screen there right now, instead of just the gap between his driveways, do you put the sign south a little ways and then north of the north driveway, so you don't get people encroaching from both sides instead of just in the middle?
Right. My recommendation would be then to put it on the lot line. And the lot line is probably somewhere about right here.
That's
You know, like where the front of that
Yeah.
car is.
Yeah.
Or either way, I would
That's
just,
bad if you're-
I think your point is valid, that you'd want to probably go at least a car length on both sides, maybe.
Yeah, because 4 feet by state statute just doesn't give a lot of visual, sight lines
Right.
for when you're coming and going from the driveway.
Good point.
Well, if it's an issue on both sides, I mean, then this is almost kind of like a school zone, you know, where you have issues with kids and parents crossing mid-block, you know, to go on the other side of the street. And as many of you know, my position is on that. I'm more of a supporter of having street side loading and unloading, which would mean, in this case, allowing the parking activity to take place on the west side of the street, but then restricting it on the opposite side of the street. But that also comes with, especially in a situation like this, you have all these residences on the east side of the street. What are they going to think? You know, especially if it's a weekend, it's like, hey, you know, cleaning the garage, got to put cars out on the street. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. Maybe this is something. Again, as I started this conversation off, was that I was really expecting to see those two here in the gallery. That was my assumption after leaving that meeting, that they were going to show up to support the request.
Well,
But
the
they're
other
not
part
here,
doesn't-
so I don't know. Maybe this is something that we just delay or table, postpone for one meeting and come back with it. I don't know.
I don't think we need to
I don't think so.
No, I think-
postpone it, because I think it's a very legitimate
Yeah.
request that's in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think what the chairman and I are saying is that we should really take a look at that, some sort of restriction on the east side, because I've been down there. You can hardly get through there.
Okay.
I think the speed limit's only 25 through there, so if you're going slow, you'll be able to
Yeah, you
get
can
by.
meet.
Right.
And having parking on both sides is a traffic calming measure, so.
Can you
It's
ask-
it's calm.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
calm.
because-
Yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with speeding, of course.
Well, you got people crossing in the mid-block too. I mean,
That's the
they
problem.
get out of their car on the east side to go to the west side. and-
Right.
But of course, there's gonna have, I don't know who owns it. I'm not sure it's called a funeral home or a chapel, but per state, or I don't know, not statute, but should they have so many parking spots to accommodate if they're gonna have that many people at an event? Do they have some onus on?
Zoning
Well,
codes or whatever.
The unfortunate part when it comes down to our zoning code, and this is something I've disagreed with for a long time, is that, you know, they'll look at the on-site parking stalls, tally them up, and if they don't meet the minimum requirements, then they'll go, okay, well, how many cars can you fit on the street contiguous to the property? And then count them. I've never thought that that's a real rational way to go for, say, an instance like this. I mean, let's just say that there was more of an issue and we had to restrict parking next to that business. So how can you then therefore count those cars any longer? You can't. So I've always thought that's kind of been somewhat of a loophole, you know, in our zoning code. But nonetheless, it exists up to this day. But, you know, in a situation like this, you think that, you know, the bank probably has, I don't know, I guess they're open till like noon probably on a Saturday, but after that, you know, I would think that the lot would be empty, and maybe they could work out some agreement with, you know, between the funeral home and the bank for some off-site parking.
I have seen cars park in the Wells Fargo lot there.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, that, depending on how big the event is, I mean, and property,
I've been there.
and the business owner at 818, he probably wouldn't be real happy with limited parking. He said that's part of his problem. He's got people parking in his lot that are
Yeah, they're spilling
going to
over.
the event, and, you know, it's usually, like I said, I don't drive by there during the week as much, but I don't know if it's, they have all their services there on Saturday and Sunday. That's what it seems to be.
Well, if you take it off one side, then you're pushing that problem worse than probably that other guy's.
Oh, yeah.
neighbor's lot or the
Yeah.
bank lot if it's not.
Yeah, make it even worse. I
So,
don't know. I guess I would just point it out. It seems to me to be a potential area for, you know, possibly an action or something, but.
Right, I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, I think, you know, the request is legitimate, you know, I get it.
Yeah,
Guy
no,
wants to
it's-
have safe access, and if there's someone parking in that area where they really shouldn't be, having a sign there, I think would probably help the situation out. But if there's not really a safety problem that exists, I mean, I know anecdotally it's maybe a little on the tight side, and, you know, we can create scenarios of potential safety issues, but at the end of the day, we should really be asking ourselves how many pet-related issues are there, anything like that. I mean, we can't always be making recommendations based off of potential scenarios. So, and especially in a case like this where the alderman's probably not even really aware of this consideration and its impacts on the residents. so.
Yeah, no, I think,
And so in a situation like this, I would say, and we are somewhat bound to just looking at the request itself, if you know what I mean. And that's why I was saying, if you wanted to kind of look at this in a little bit broader sense, that would have to come probably as a different item.
right.
But, we do have an item on the table tonight.
I'd like to move to approve the item that we have.
With the clarification by Chuck.
Yeah, property line,
Yes,
property line.
property
or
line,
Okay.
yes.
You mentioned.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The only comment I would make, if you're gonna talk to Alderman Vanderleest, you may want to mention to him that there is some concern about the traffic problem out there that, but I understand what you're saying about it's, to make changes based off something that could happen. I mean, you go throughout the city, you got issues with tight streets everywhere, whatever. I guess I was more just pointing out that seemed to be an issue on the weekend, for a point of reference.
Would a painted crosswalk help that situation?
Where would you put one?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
not
I
sure.
don't
There's
know.
some legality to bring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're asking me my opinion on a mid-block crosswalk,
No,
we'll
we
do
don't-
that off
yeah.
record. How's that sound?
And that's all mid-block too.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if there's a good answer for there, a good answer for the cross block.
The park
Crosswalk.
entrance is farther south of 6, right, if I remember right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's down on the corner by the
Yeah,
bank.
yeah, 6 has got them, I believe Shirley might as well. Shirley's right here.
Yeah.
And looks like we have maybe that's just a driveway over there, so no, you don't even have any ADA style accommodations on the one side of the street. I don't know, at the end of the day, this seems like more of a business that just can't handle its demand. And now all of a sudden it's becoming a public issue.
Yeah, they don't want to penalize the neighborhood there. I mean, it's, I don't know how you solve that out, I guess. It's one of those things, you're aware of it, but you live with it. It's on the weekend, so it's at least less people moving around.
Right.
And they have a right to mourn and do what they need to do too, so.
Yeah.
All right, so
So motion is made and seconded,
Second.
right?
yep,
Okay.
move on.
Move to adjourn?
Move, yeah. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All right.
Is our next meeting September 11th, or is it the 18th?
Monday the
It'd
18th.
be the
is what I
18th,
have,
okay.
yeah.
It's usually the third Monday of the month.
Third Monday, okay.
As long as Dave is back, hopefully you're.
Oh, yeah.
He's not taking vacations